In other words, we're evolving, to keep it simple.
Here's a question, one other question from Abdul Bey TV. Wants to know if it's true that many politicians are locked up in Gitmo by Mr. T.
Well, as we've told people in these last few years, and particularly in these last 4 years, when we reminded people, and some people have taken it wrong, that Donald J. Trump is assigned. And one of the things that people need to know when they're talking about, as an example, the Abraham Lincoln administration, when the members of the Circle Church and Chancery of the Bar Association infiltrated the Congress for the Republic with the intention of overthrowing, which is one of which the assassination of Abraham Lincoln was part of that covert activity, etc., and converted, overthrew the Republic, thus their obligation to treaties and Constitution to enforce the Inquisition operations, and people will just cover it up with the statement saying that they changed the republic to a corporation. No, that's a lie. They had no authority to do that. The deal of it is the republic still stood. It's just that the people who are the republic were being attacked, and many of us lost knowledge that all this foundation of this estate operations here, that we are the rightful heirs. And then we, over the years, have been misdirected by COINTELPRO operatives, which is a later name given to, say, Boule operatives and many of your minions who have been working for Rome, who sent our people on this civil rights march all around the place, Negro citizen BS crap that has actually designed under the 14th constructed amendment that was never properly ratified in order to steal the birthright of the Moors. And under the guise of naturalization, not nationalization, naturalization, from a legal perspective, the Moors lost their nationality. However, I always challenge scholars to prove the existence of a so-called U.S. identity card of citizenship, which never existed. And so there's an implied contract of obligation of service to a de facto corporation political system of body politics of the Bar Association of British Accredited Registry, and thus accepting a debt for national services that were never actually executed, because we cannot be and never were citizens of the U.S. corporation company, but we're in fact under corporal colonial operations right on. And of course, this is where the restoration of the right of estate comes from with the Moorish Divine and National Movement, with the restoration of the lost estate of the Moors. And of course, by people not knowing the political background, they have a tendency to look at the Moorish Divine and National Movement only from a pseudo religious perspective. And this is why there's, in many instances, a lot of schism that exists within the Moorish movement over these decades, for people having a lack of knowledge of what the real politics are. And they will take a perspective based on leader guys who take positions of sheiks, grand governors, etc., without consideration of the real obligations of diversity of nationality and the distinguishing of the legitimate platforms of controversy relative to persons and property in relationship to diversity, particularly Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution, with the enforcement of all treaties, and Article 6 of the Constitution for the United States, with the obligations in place for the enforcement of all treaties, etc., being the supreme law of the land, which has not been taught to the people. And therefore, very often, their concept of looking at that Constitution has been wrong, not comprehending that the Constitution and the presidency is the obligation of those corporate foreign bodies doing business at Morocco, and limitations of their jurisdictional powers in relationship to both the people of the land and even to their own members, etc., with all treaties in force. This is again why many people, when they're talking about nation states, etc., they will always bring up titles, but they won't bring up the issue of diversity and explain it clearly to people, and also the lawful venue by which those things are executed whenever there's a controversy between persons or property relative to status and estate, etc. That's where you see in the Constitution, and I suggest that many of you who are out there read Article 3, that's the judicial platform for the Republic, and you will see that the lawful courts that were set up under the jurisdiction of the United States is ambassadors, diplomats, and consulars. And when you're dealing with treaty enforcement, logically, that is consular court. And this is again why people who really know this have been offended over the years of me promoting the restoration of the activities of Article 3 courts of diversity of consular venue relative to diversity of nationality to properly address the issues of the Aboriginal people of the land, because that's the established venue. And of course, people who have been benefiting from perpetrating the Bar Association pilfering of our people, logically, politically don't support that, although it's written right there, and try to present the dogmatic position that I made that up. Or they say that the people who have been listening to some of the things that I've taught would say, oh, they're Tajites, rather than do the research for themselves and see that you have traitors among your own. And this is back to what Sister was talking about earlier. Because this is, again, why we always try to share information with the people, because the people must clean up their house, and they must shed themselves of these parasites and opportunists among our own who have been pretending to love our people. This is why you'll see many of them that when you get into the details of this information, all of a sudden, with them, Noble Drawley is no longer the prophet. And you'll see them making statements like that. Why? Because it exposes them, because they're traitors. And that's not opinion. You do research and you'll see it for yourself. And this is, again, why we've had difficulty over the years. And of course, people among the nationals of the land who are not aware of the real history get caught in personalities rather than looking at the principled facts and then measuring or vetting the people accordingly. And because many people have not been truthfully and properly teaching the principles of nationality and the relationships between government and nationals and citizens and the different statuses and subjects, etc., and it has not been made clear to them, they get caught in this gray area. And that's what has allowed these opportunists and thieves among our own who have been secretly working for the Bar Association to pilfer our people for hundreds and thousands of notes, etc., under the guise of commercial credit systems, etc., under the guise of rescuing them to their estate, when in fact they are the heirs of the estate. And so they have them buying and selling aspects of their own estate from foreign European courier members of the Bar Association and their helpers among our own who've been pilfering our people and, of course, prolonging the problem. And like the sister says, we're going to have to start shedding these people, and we're going to have to start recognizing that and stop taking things personal and start vetting people according to principle and stop making this stuff complex, because it isn't complex and never was. Just because the Bar Association made a law process complex artificially in order to deny our people due process, and keep in mind, justice delayed is justice denied. And keep in mind, the fundamental principles of supreme law of the land are to be put in place, easily recognized, comprehended, and within the capacity of the average man, woman, and intelligent child to comprehend. And they have made all of this stuff complex. This is why, even again, as Dr. Naila set up close and personal, as we did the last time, I shared with people Chapter 1 of American law, government law and sovereignty, because also the priesthood and the politicians have been putting a bad spin or a negative spin on people who even mention the word sovereign. because that's divine. That's not given to you by government. You keep that in mind. They don't want you to know that. They think that's some kind of privilege if you sign some commercial agreement and make some financial statement to receive credit from the Bar Association through the Jesuit order of the Federal Reserve to get some credit notes from them and then be able to do some transacted business rather than tying you back to your actual lost estate, which they've been living on at your expense as belligerent fofers under the guise of trustee. This is again why they don't teach trust law. So their motive is not honorable. But of course they know that people that don't know these fundamentals get caught up in, oh, I follow this person. You don't follow anybody. What you do, you study what people do and let it become your own and do some cross-reference and research. Then you get together with other honorable people, getting the worms out from under you, the parasites from around you, the narcissistic title holders from around you that are more interested in guiding their hands into your pockets than they are in liberating the people. And this is again why over the years, because I already know people will go through developmental stages. And I've always reminded people some of the things you do today, you will not be doing tomorrow. But I also know that our people need to go through some of these experiences. And at the same time, I also know I was aware that the time would come that the nations of the earth would stop buying U.S. Treasury bonds and you would have the feedback loop, which I've been telling people for years. And so now you got all these trade embargoes. And so now people are starting to feel it, aren't they? So you're not going to have to keep on arguing with these people to make them comprehend what Noble Drew did when he established the Divine National Movement, because it has a purpose. And now you can also see those who have been countering it because it's becoming more and more obvious because it's coming to the surface. And you can discern for yourself. My concern and my energy is involved in bringing up certain issues that help people make discernment so that people by their own will and intent can help fix this thing, because it's your birthright. It's not somebody's good idea that you're a club member to. And it's so important for that to be clear to you. And this is also for people over the years that keep trying to assign me the things that my mother didn't assign me to. My mother assigned me to what I'm doing. I'm a fisherman. I'm a carpenter. I'm a builder. That's what I do. And for those who have those skills, if that's what their mother made them for, go ahead and do it. More power to you.
I'm trying to get to the There were a lot of questions in here pertaining to how one should nationalize. I mean, because there's probably as many responses.
Make that very clear to me.
How? I mean, they're literally questions about how to nationalize. And so.
Oh, yeah. Now, and this is, give me that treaty book again, please. Yeah, very important. Because this is very important. And this is what people need to understand or comprehend. And again, I will remind you how this stuff is often redundant. Now, as far as the Naturalization Act, and now this goes with the citizenship, and as you all know, that they're having problems here, not only at North America, but around the world with territorial jurisdictional issues being breached and people in the political realm being forced to address it. And they'll call it foreign innocent immigrants coming across the Mexican border or the Canadian border, etc. And so now the issues of territorial jurisdiction is being addressed reluctantly and creating a bunch of problems. But the masses have not been told that the issue that are being addressed with the so-called immigrant problem and families being separated, etc., is territorial jurisdiction. And for them to actually have legitimate claim of argument or counter argument in the international venue of what is called international law, now you're talking back to what is known as the common law or nature's law. Now you got to name the mothers. So now the issue of nationality is being brought up, even though they're not defining it to the people, because in order to have argument, they got to identify themselves. So how is these foreign Europeans here, and I'm not supporting one side or another. I want you to look at, examine this, because this is for your teaching. This is for your instruction. This is for your comprehension. When they're talking about the different people coming from South American islands and South American nations up to North America under the United States, remember, the United States is a private corporation. The political jurisdiction is America, and they are Americans. Most of these people that they're calling immigrants. Now they're caught because they're still trying to promote that the United States Corporation Company is the country. As a matter of fact, they'll often say America, which is also a false paradigm without explanation, because that's the continent. You see the problem that they're having right now? So the things that they're having right now, problems that they're having right now, Noble Drew lived just over 100 years ago to the Moors of the land. And now these things are being placed before you in your experience for your learning. So now in relationship to even the issue of the Moors here and their nationality, we're going to go here in the treaty book. And that printing is direct from the congressional records, etc. And I left the printing in its original form rather than typing it over. And as I said before, because I already know that we have operatives among our own. A lot of people were sent around that like the sister said earlier, that you trusted. I already know, because a lot of people, everybody has something to offer. However, I already knew in due time they would expose themselves. A lot of them mad at me now, don't want to speak to me. I don't care. Well, I already knew many of them that were agents from the beginning. But we're in a mess. You got to learn to work with people. And you got to learn that, like the sister said earlier, we're going to have to shed some of these people. But without knowledge, you won't know how to vet them. So here we go. I want you to look in this. And so that is page 460. And this is a print off, not the actual pages in the book. This is for your reference, for your research. Citizenship of the United States, expatriation, etc. Statement. There are, however, numerous treaties and conventions between the various Christian countries and the Moorish Empire, by means of which citizenship in this country is defined. But as I understand from the above acknowledged instruction, that's plural, instructions, that it is not the desire of the department to call for a report upon such lines, which means they don't want to expose, they don't want to make this, public controversy. I will therefore confine these remarks to general conditions existing, which may possibly be of some use in connection with the information desired. Number one, citizenship in Morocco may be said to be governed by the laws pertaining to the same in other countries. So these are universal principles. Keep this in mind. With the exception that all persons residing in Morocco who cannot prove foreign citizenship or protection are considered ipso jure as Moorish subjects. That means you got to prove that you ain't Moorish. If you're here, North America, which is really Morocco, under the occupation of the United States Corporation Company, because you can see right here, citizenship of the United States, and you can see right here, there it is, Morocco. It's not hidden, and it's not unknown that these people are Moors. Number 2 and 3, Moorish subjects lost their nationality only by becoming naturalized in or protected by another country having treaty relations with the Moorish Empire. It was established by the Convention of Madrid, concluded July the 3rd, 1880, etc. And so you see why they've been promoting the 14th Amendment Negro Acts and telling our people that they're Negroes instead of Moors, which would make them stock property And that's what we've been suffering from. Now you understand why Noble Drawley say declare your nationality, because you got to clear your status up to even make claim to your estate. That's documented. And how many of your so-called Moorish leader guys avoid what I just said? That's documented. They'll tell people Taji guy made that stuff up, lying their keisters off. That's why a lot of people are upset with me. And it's exposing a lot of people who've been around me for quite some time. They thought I didn't see them. I thought I see them. But I'm a warrior. I'm in the field. I'm getting my hands dirty. I don't need a fez. I don't need my turban. I don't need the jewelry. I'm down to earth, Taji guy with the cheap sneaks, getting work done. And those of you who need title, go ahead and have fun. I want to get the work done. I want to see my children and my children's children liberated. I don't need no crown.
Here's a question from Lamont Moy. It says, Emperor stated they, D-E-Y, were Caucasians. Who were the Days?
Caucasians are Moors. Duh, duh, duh. This goes back to the linguistic form. Caucasus Israel, under the rulership of Aunt, who was known as Aunt Hagar, who ruled the Yucatan, who ruled the Moabite nation in southwest of Mexico, known as the Yucatan. And her grave right now is in Mecca on the other side. How come they won't say that? Because the name that was given to the hybrid came from Yaqub Kushidus, Israel, etc. That's where the name come from that was given to the hybrid for sake of the hybrid experiments. Because there's no such thing as Caucasian in the concept that has been adopted in the modern world. You need to know your Moorish history. So when you're making these statements, the assumption on the connotative level of animal husbandry must not be established as the genetic and political reality as it has been promoted, because it's a false paradigm.
Did I just hear you say that the Caucasians were Moors?
Because who you think Yaqub was? He's a scientist.
But
his middle name was given to them.
But was that not an experiment that
exactly
that created a hybridization of Moors?
Now
and
you
other
got it. Yes,
beings?
Now they're called amalgamated Moors, also referred to in the Bible as the Great Amalgamation.
Would those also be the lepers?
Yeah, exactly. That was put behind the lesion, behind the rock. So that's why the rocks or the mountains were called the Caucasus Mountains. It was named after the great experimenter with the 12 women scientists, who you rarely hear talking about. You only hear usually of Yaqub. And instead of saying Yaqub, they'll say Jacob ladder.
They also have,
people need to really know. You need to know your Moorish history.
They also say that the women scientists that carried the experiment, they try to give them an extraterrestrial origin. They talk about Enki and Enlil.
Don't we all know? Let's be real. Don't we all know that all of us are not necessarily from this particular planet?
Oh yeah.
And that we have peopled other aspects of the planet, and in this particular hemisphere of the galaxy, of this solar system, the humanoid figure, though taking variable forms, is common to this particular solar system. That's a fact. Now, the deal of it is the hybriding. This is where you go into, for those of you who have Oxford dictionaries. Now, here's your Oxfords. Let me see. See your Oxford dictionaries. You go look up hybrid. And hybrid, and they will tell you, and this is again why they don't have certain dictionaries in our communities, and this is due to the Sigmund Freud mind control operations in the education system. They will tell you in reference to the Albions, because remember where we place them in what you call England or land of Angles, what you call England, etc., is that we when we ruled, that area was called Albion after we put the hybrids there behind the rock. This is where you get the Caucasian designation given to them from the scientists, etc. So that was given to them. This is also where you have the heterogeneous exposure, even in Oxford Dictionary, and they will say to you, and I think it's in entry around entry 8 or something like this. This is for you scholars to do your research, and they will say, "We Englishmen are but heterogeneous hybrids at best." You will not find that in your regular dictionaries because of the animal husbandry dispensation, etc., by Sigmund Freud and adopted by John D. Rockefeller and Frederick T. Gates in 1902. With those, now they're not going to go into that logically because you will recognize that that you have what you will call the hybrid rebellion, and this is demonstrated to you in movie form, like the Nemesis of the Wicked Witch of the West, and then the good Witch of the East, and they're in battle representing matriarchy. Then you have Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz representing the matriarch, and then you have the Yellow Brick Road, which represents the zodiac constitution principle of the Canaanite Moabite nation cosmology, etc. And then you have the Anthropopithecus Pongidae with wings, representing the hybriding of off-world, etc., i.e. you would call them the flying monkeys. And then you have the Wizard of Oz, which represents the dogma systems of the representation of the Godhead principle, the corruption of humanity with the corruption of religion. All of that's in the Wizard of Oz. And it's also in many other movie forms that they tell you your history. And then you'll see, for those of you who have been into movies, look at the keep in mind, Moor in French is Moreau. So keep that in mind. That in French is a branch of Latin, Moorish Latin. And then you're going back to Iberia. And this is why a lot of people who really don't know the history of the takeover of Iberia in Europe will say, "Oh, well, Moor is French." French is African, you dummies. You know, our people, and the scholars have done this to our people. And the real deal of it is, that's why even in more recent years, because people who really don't know this history of Central America and the Yucatan, you know, keep thinking that Caucasian is really the pale-skinned species of the human stock in its hybrid form. Well, yes, that's a name given to them, but they're actually given the experimental term of albine or albion. This is where you get the term albino. And when you do the research and you all go into your old dictionaries, the land that you called England is known as Albion. Why? Because that's where we took the albinos. This is where it's talked in the Septuaginta in the Bible as the people with the lepers. They also, now you understand in Ireland when they talk about the leprechaun and the gold, etc., and the little green men, etc., and the golden rainbow and the pot of gold at the end. And then you talk about, as a matter of fact, in your King Alfred, for them, this is named after King Alfred in the Ireland area. And you'll talk about Tag Day, or when they ran the Moors, they say the snakes out of Ireland. That's you. They were killing off the Moors, the Dubs, and the Picts, etc. So in many ways, they're actually exposing the history. But if you don't know how we got to where we are, you see these things, and if no one makes you reconnected to it, you dismiss it as if it belongs to the Paleolith, when actually they genocided you out in Iberia, or what you call Europa, and now they're doing it to you in North America, which is silent weapons for quiet wars. They're continuing their Inquisition operations. That's why I make the distinction, and particularly as of late, hybrid Europeans, to make the distinction between the hybrids, which is a mixture of Pangaea and human species, and with some off-world. This is why they're hybrids. And this is also why they're warring on you. You need to understand, because they're not the people of the earth.